The bridge of the horizon hummed with a strange mixture of tension and contained fury. Captain Elena Rodriguez studied the holographic projection of Ambassador Krulax, her dark eyes never wavering. The alien's iridescent scales shifted with each contemptuous syllable, creating a mesmerizing yet infuriating display of biological arrogance. Communications Specialist Lieutenant Jamal Khan sat rigid at his station, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces as he recorded every nuanced moment of the transmission. To his left, Dr. Samira Reese, the mission's lead xenoanthropologist, was meticulously analyzing the Zorn diplomat's body language, her neural link datapad capturing micro-expressions and linguistic subtleties. "Let me be crystal clear," Ambassador Krulax proclaimed, his translator rendering his words with clinical precision. "Humanity's current technological state places you firmly in the category of emerging species. Your request for expanded trade routes and technological exchange is categorically denied." Elena's jaw tightened. She had prepared for multiple scenarios: diplomatic negotiation, cultural misunderstanding, even potential hostility. But this level of pure, unapologetic condescension was something else entirely. The Zorn's communication methodology was itself a form of psychological warfare. Each sentence was carefully constructed to diminish, to reduce humanity to something less than significant. Their language possessed no fewer than 17 distinct grammatical structures specifically designed to express hierarchical superiority, and Krulax was using every single one. "Your deep space exploration capabilities are rudimentary," the ambassador continued. "Your energy production methods are inefficient. Your understanding of quantum mechanics remains embarrassingly primitive. The Galactic Consortium has deliberated, and we find your civilization unready for meaningful interstellar engagement." Lieutenant Khan's neural implant was recording massive amounts of data. Every diplomatic nuance, every linguistic trick was being analyzed in real time by advanced AI systems back on Earth. What the Zorn saw as a dismissal, humans saw as an opportunity for comprehensive study. Dr. Reese leaned slightly toward Captain Rodriguez, her voice a near whisper. "He's using classic dominance communication strategies. Complete dismissal combined with overwhelming technical language designed to intimidate." Elena nodded imperceptibly. The Zorn believed they were delivering a definitive statement. Instead, they were providing humanity with the most valuable resource possible: information. The holographic projection continued its methodical deconstruction of human potential. Star charts flickered behind Krulax, showing restricted zones where human vessels would not be permitted. Trade routes were being redrawn, with humanity reduced to a marginal footnote in galactic commerce. What the Zorn did not understand was the fundamental nature of human resilience. Every civilization that had ever attempted to constrain humanity had ultimately failed. From the earliest human migrations across treacherous landscapes to the first lunar colonies, humans transformed limitations into launching points for innovation. Captain Rodriguez waited, her posture relaxed, but her eyes sharp. She would not give Ambassador Krulax the satisfaction of an emotional response. Instead, she would give him something far more dangerous: calculated attention. "Your assessment is noted, Ambassador," she finally responded, her tone professional and measured. "The United Earth Diplomatic Corps will review your communication and respond through appropriate channels." Krulax's scaled facial muscles shifted. Was that surprise? Confusion? He clearly expected heated denial, passionate argument. Instead, he received bureaucratic acknowledgement that revealed absolutely nothing. As the transmission concluded, the bridge crew exchanged knowing glances. They had just completed the most important first contact mission in human history, and contrary to the Zorn's expectations, this was not an ending. This was a beginning. The United Earth Strategy Consortium's primary facility looked nothing like a traditional government building. Nestled deep beneath the Andes Mountains, the complex was a marvel of underground engineering, a testament to human innovation and strategic thinking. Massive quantum-cooled servers hummed beneath transparent floor panels, while holographic displays danced with complex algorithms and global data streams. Dr. Aiden Chen stood at the center of the main conference room, his lean frame radiating an intensity that commanded attention. Around him, the most brilliant minds from every corner of human civilization sat in a circular arrangement that defied traditional hierarchical meeting structures. There were no head seats, no obvious leaders, just pure collaborative potential. "We've been given a gift," Aiden began, his voice calm but electric with possibility. The holographic projections around him shifted, displaying the recent Zorn communication in excruciating detail. The Zorn believe they've dismissed us. In reality, they've just provided us with the most comprehensive intelligence report we could have hoped for. Dr. Sakura Yamamoto, lead quantum systems analyst, manipulated a holographic interface with practiced ease. Linguistic patterns, communication structures, and subtle nuances of the Zorn transmission began to break apart like a complex crystal dissolving under precise scientific scrutiny. "Their communication methodology is a weapon," she explained, "but it's also a map. Look here." A series of linguistic algorithms appeared, color-coded, and spinning in three-dimensional space. They have 17 distinct grammatical structures for expressing hierarchical superiority, but each of these structures contains inherent vulnerabilities. Next to her, Professor Ibrahim Mohammed, an expert in xenoeconomics, was already developing preliminary economic models. His fingers danced across multiple holographic interfaces, each one revealing potential pressure points in the Zorn's galactic trade network. "Technological suppression is their primary strategy," Ibrahim noted, "but suppression always creates pressure. And pressure finds release." His economic models began to take shape, intricate webs of potential market disruptions that looked more like complex neural networks than traditional financial projections. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, no relation to the space captain, specialized in adaptive systems and artificial intelligence. Her team had been quietly developing next-generation diplomatic AI that could process and predict interstellar communication strategies with unprecedented accuracy. "We're not just preparing a response," she said, her voice cutting through the room's ambient technological hum. "We're developing a comprehensive system that can predict and adapt to their communication strategies in real time." The room fell silent for a moment. Each participant understood the magnitude of what they were attempting. This was more than a diplomatic challenge. This was a fundamental reimagining of humanity's approach to first contact. Aiden Chen walked to the central holographic display, where a three-dimensional representation of human and Zorn technological capabilities began to materialize. The contrast was stark. The Zorn's technology appeared rigid, hierarchical, beautiful in its complexity, but ultimately limited by its own structural constraints. Human technology, by contrast, looked organic, adaptive, capable of rapid transformation. "We've always been underestimated," Aiden said, a slight smile crossing his face. "Our ability to adapt, to transform limitations into opportunities. The Zorn see our current technological state and believe they understand us. They do not." The quantum servers beneath their feet continued to hum. Massive computational power was being devoted to a single, complex problem: how to turn a moment of potential humiliation into humanity's greatest strategic opportunity. Outside the underground facility, the world continued its daily rhythms. Most humans had no idea of the strategic preparations underway. But those in the room knew they were writing the next chapter of human history, not through aggression, but through the most powerful tool humanity had ever developed. Intelligence. Pure, adaptive, transformative intelligence. The first strike was invisible. A financial tsunami that began with seemingly innocuous market shifts. In the gleaming towers of New Singapore's Global Economic Center, a team of 27 specialists worked in perfect synchronization. Their workspace defied traditional office designs. Circular workstations with The Global Technology Reveal Center stood as a monument to human innovation. Located in the heart of what was once the Atacama Desert, Now a thriving technological oasis, the facility sparkled like a crystal beneath the bright Chilean sunlight. Dr. Sophia Patil adjusted her quantum resonance calibrator, her hand steady despite the global anticipation building around her. Quantum communication network activation in 3 minutes, announced the holographic display, its soft blue light casting ethereal shadows across the research floor. Thousands of the world's most brilliant scientists, engineers, and researchers watched from various locations. This wasn't just a technological demonstration. This was humanity's statement to the galaxy. The quantum communication network represented years of collaborative research that had pushed the boundaries of known physics. Traditional communication relied on electromagnetic waves or quantum entanglement with significant limitations. This network was something entirely different, a living, adaptive communication system that could transmit information across unprecedented distances with absolute security and near instantaneous speed. Dr. Patil remembered the early days of development. Countless failed prototypes, theoretical models that collapsed under their own complexity. Nights spent debugging quantum algorithms that seemed to defy fundamental understanding. And now, everything was about to change. Network stability at 99.997%, called out Dr. Jamal Khan, the lead quantum stability engineer. His fingers danced across multiple holographic interfaces, each movement precise and calculated. The network wasn't just a communication system. It was a living, breathing technological organism. Adaptive algorithms could reroute communication pathways in microseconds. Quantum encryption made traditional hacking techniques look like children's puzzles. Most impressively, the network could learn, adapt, and optimize itself in real time. Across human colonies, from the deep-sea research stations of the Pacific to the lunar research bases, from the Martian agricultural domes to the orbital research platforms, systems began to synchronize. What had once been isolated outposts were now part of a single, breathtaking technological ecosystem. First cross-system quantum transmission initiating, announced the holographic display. A message traveled from a lunar research station to a deep-sea facility, then to a Martian agricultural dome, and back to the reveal center. The transmission happened so fast that traditional measurement systems could barely register its existence. Light years of distance became meaningless, but the quantum communication network was just the beginning. Adaptive energy systems came online simultaneously. These weren't traditional power generation methods. Each system could analyze local environmental conditions, draw energy from multiple sources, and redistribute power with unprecedented efficiency. A solar array in the Sahara could instantly support a research station in Antarctica. A wind farm in Patagonia could provide emergency power to a lunar base. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead AI diplomatic strategist, watched the technological reveal with a calculated smile. The diplomatic AI systems they had developed could now predict alien negotiation tactics with terrifying accuracy. Machine learning algorithms had been trained on millions of historical diplomatic interactions, xenolinguistic patterns, and complex communication strategies. "We're not just showing our technology," she explained to her team. "We're demonstrating our fundamental approach to problem solving. Adaptability, interconnectedness, continuous learning." The Zorn had believed humanity was technologically primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they were. As the final systems came online, a collective sense of anticipation filled the Global Technology Reveal Center. This wasn't just a technological demonstration. This was humanity's response to being underestimated. This was a declaration to the galaxy. We are here. We are ready. And we are far more than you ever imagined. The Galactic diplomatic nexus had never seen anything quite like the human delegation. Ambassador Michael Okoro moved with a grace that belied the weight of humanity's carefully prepared strategy. His team was unlike any diplomatic corps in galactic history, a perfect blend of cultural experts, quantum communication specialists, economic strategists, and AI-assisted negotiators. The conference hall stretched beyond typical spatial perceptions, a massive multi-level chamber designed to accommodate dozens of galactic civilizations. Holographic translators hummed with subtle energy, ready to capture every nuance of communication. Representatives from over 60 different species watched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The Zorn delegation occupied their traditional position, raised platforms suggesting hierarchical superiority, elaborate ceremonial dress communicating centuries of perceived dominance. Ambassador Krulax sat with what he believed was an imposing posture, his iridescent scales reflecting the chamber's soft lighting. They did not realize they were walking into a carefully prepared arena. Ambassador Okoro's opening statement was deceptively simple. Colleagues of the Galactic Consortium, we come with comprehensive data regarding recent communication and economic interactions. As he spoke, holographic displays began to materialize. Not aggressive presentations, but meticulously documented evidence. Economic flowcharts showed how Zorn trade restrictions had systematically limited technological and resource exchange with emerging civilizations. Communication logs revealed patterns of linguistic manipulation designed to maintain galactic hierarchies. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, seated behind Okoro, controlled the presentation's flow through her neural link interface. Each piece of evidence was not just presented, it was contextualized. Complex data transformed into clear, understandable narratives that even the most bureaucratic representatives could comprehend. The first wave of evidence focused on economic manipulation. Detailed analyses showed how the Zorn's trade policies had created artificial scarcity in multiple star systems. Resource distribution charts revealed calculated strategies of control, not development. These are not accusations, Ambassador Okoro continued, his voice calm and precise. These are documented patterns of systemic limitation. Zorn Ambassador Krulax shifted uncomfortably. His scales began to lose their previous luster, a biological tell of increasing stress that did not go unnoticed by the xenobiological experts in the human delegation. The second wave of presentations focused on communication strategies. Linguistic AI systems developed by human researchers broke down the Zorn's communication methodologies with surgical precision. Each grammatical structure designed to express superiority was now laid bare, its psychological mechanisms exposed. Representatives from other galactic civilizations began to lean forward. What had seemed like impenetrable alien communication was now being decoded, analyzed, and presented with remarkable clarity. Dr. Samira Reese, the human team's lead xenolinguistic expert, provided contextual analysis. These communication structures are not just language, she explained. They are instruments of psychological control. The holographic displays continued their relentless presentation. Economic models, communication patterns, resource distribution analyses. Each slide was a precisely aimed intellectual arrow, dismantling the Zorn's carefully constructed narrative of galactic superiority. Ambassador Krulax attempted to interrupt multiple times. Each attempt was smoothly managed by the human delegation's communication specialists, acknowledged, but not allowed to disrupt the comprehensive presentation. What the Zorn had intended as a moment of human humiliation was transforming into something entirely different, a systematic, intellectual dismantling of their galactic narrative. The human delegation wasn't just presenting evidence, they were rewriting the rules of galactic diplomacy. As the presentation concluded, a profound silence filled the massive chamber. The Zorn delegation looked shell-shocked. Other galactic representatives looked intrigued, impressed, and slightly terrified. Humanity had just entered the galactic stage, and they were nobody's footnote. The moment of desperation came swiftly. Cornered by the diplomatic revelations and economic pressures, the Zorn collective made their fatal miscalculation. Military vessels emerged from quantum-fold spaces near human outer colonies, a show of force intended to intimidate, to reassert their perceived galactic dominance. Admiral Kira Rodriguez sat in the command center of the United Earth Deep Space Defense Platform, her eyes calm and calculating. The holographic displays around her came alive with incoming sensor data, each quantum scan revealing the approaching Zorn fleet with crystal clarity. "Incoming vessels," announced Lieutenant Jamal Khan, his voice steady. 17 capital ships, 12 support craft, weapons systems currently powered but not actively targeting. It was a classic intimidation tactic. The Zorn believed they could reset the diplomatic narrative through a show of military might. They were about to learn how fundamentally they misunderstood humanity. "Defensive protocols," Admiral Rodriguez commanded, "but no active countermeasures. Let them believe they have the advantage." The human colonies they approached were anything but defenseless. Each outpost was a marvel of adaptive technology, systems that could transform from research stations to defensive platforms in milliseconds. Quantum-linked defense networks created an invisible shield far more sophisticated than traditional military hardware. The first Zorn ships began their approach, their massive energy signatures cutting through the darkness of space. Traditional military strategists would have seen this as a moment of potential conflict. The human response was something entirely different. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, sitting in the Strategic Analysis Center, began implementing the next phase of their comprehensive response. "Initiating adaptive response protocol," she murmured, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. The colonies didn't just have defenses. They had intelligence. Automated defense systems came online, not with weapons, but with an array of technological countermeasures that would render the Zorn attack comically ineffective. Stealth drones materialized from seemingly impossible locations, mapping every movement of the approaching fleet. Electronic warfare systems began to weave a complex tapestry of digital disruption. Quantum communication networks allowed each human installation to share and adapt information faster than the Zorn could comprehend. What appeared to be isolated defensive positions were actually a single, breathing technological organism. "Zorn fleet attempting communication," Lieutenant Khan reported. "Encryption protocols are unusual." Admiral Rodriguez allowed herself a slight smile. Run it through the linguistic eye. The communication was a typical Zorn diplomatic military hybrid. Threats mixed with demands. Statements of superiority interwoven with calls for immediate surrender. The AI systems began their analysis, breaking down each linguistic nuance with terrifying precision. The Zorn ships began to experience the first signs of technological disruption. Navigation systems became unreliable. Communication channels started to fragment. Sensor arrays picked up ghost signals that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. This wasn't a battle. This was a demonstration. Each Zorn vessel found its systems subtly compromised. Not destroyed. Not defeated. Simply redirected. Navigation systems began suggesting alternative routes. Communication channels started routing through unexpected pathways. Sensor arrays became increasingly confused about their actual tactical situation. "They're not even aware they're being manipulated," Dr. Elena Rodriguez noted, watching the fleet's movements with academic fascination. The human colonies they had intended to intimidate remained perfectly calm. Research continued. Agricultural systems operated normally. Not a single weapon was fired. Not a single defensive shield was raised. The Zorn fleet, in its attempt to show strength, was being systematically transformed into an elaborate demonstration of human technological superiority. Humanity's response was clear. "We do not need to destroy you to defeat you. We can simply make you irrelevant." The Zorn Collective's central communication hub descended into chaos with unprecedented speed. What had once been a model of hierarchical efficiency now resembled a complex system experiencing total systemic failure. Subcouncil leader Vexera watched in growing horror as communication channels fractured. Internal reporting systems began to contradict each other. Economic projections that had seemed rock-solid mere weeks ago now looked like fragile constructions ready to collapse at the slightest touch. "Report," Vexera demanded, her scaled hands moving across communication interfaces with increasing desperation. The responses were maddeningly inconsistent. Outer colony administrators reported unexpected economic shifts. Trade routes that had been stable for centuries were suddenly becoming unpredictable. Communication networks that had been the pride of the Zorn collective now seemed to have developed minds of their own. Deep within the Zorn's central administrative complex, the true extent of their vulnerability became apparent. The rigid hierarchical structure that had been their greatest strength was now their most significant weakness. Each level of bureaucracy, designed to filter and control information, was now creating increasingly dangerous information silos. Dr. Samira Reese, watching from the Human Diplomatic Analysis Center, explained the phenomenon to her colleagues. Their communication structure is fundamentally incompatible with adaptive thinking. Each layer of bureaucracy is designed to maintain the existing power structure, which means they cannot respond effectively to fundamental systemic changes. The economic disruptions humans had carefully engineered were now reaching critical mass. Trading partners who had long been constrained by Zorn economic policies began exploring alternative arrangements. Resource distribution networks started to fragment. What made the situation more complex was the Zorn's own internal response. Instead of adapting, different factions within the collective began to turn on each other. The sub-councils responsible for economic oversights started blaming military leadership. Military strategists pointed fingers at diplomatic corps. Each group became more concerned with protecting its own position than addressing the systemic challenges. Vexera's communication with outer colonies became increasingly fragmented. Reports contradicted each other. What had seemed like a unified collective was revealing itself to be a complex network of competing interests barely held together by an illusion of centralized control. "We are experiencing communication irregularities," became the most common phrase in Zorn official communications, an understatement that masked a complete systemic breakdown. The human strategy had been brilliantly simple. They hadn't attacked the Zorn directly. They had simply introduced enough complexity to make the Zorn's existing systems unsustainable. Quantum communication networks allowed human strategists to watch the systematic deconstruction in real time. Each communication channel, each economic route, each diplomatic connection was like a thread being slowly but systematically pulled from a complex tapestry. Sub-council territories began to consider independent action. Economic zones that had been tightly controlled for generations started exploring alternative governance models. The very foundations of Zorn's societal structure were experiencing unprecedented stress. Dr. Elena Rodriguez tracked the systemic breakdown with clinical precision. "We're not destroying their civilization," she noted to her team. "We're giving them an opportunity to reimagine their entire societal structure." The most fascinating aspect was the complete lack of direct human intervention. Every system failure, every communication breakdown, every economic shift was a result of the Zorn's own internal contradictions being exposed. By the time the Zorn leadership would fully comprehend the scope of their systemic vulnerability, it would be too late. The collective was already fragmenting, with each fragment believing it was acting in its own best interest. Humanity had transformed limitation into an art form, not through direct confrontation, but through the most powerful tool in their arsenal, the ability to introduce complexity that reveals fundamental truths. The Galactic Reconstruction Summit convened in a massive orbital station that seemed to defy traditional architectural limitations. Delegates from 63 different civilizations gathered, watching as the remnants of the Zorn collective prepared to undergo the most comprehensive restructuring in their known history. Ambassador Michael Okoro stood at the center of the chamber, not as a conqueror, but as an architect of possibility. Behind him, a diverse human delegation represented the most remarkable aspect of their civilization, the ability to transform conflict into opportunity. "We are not here to punish," Okoro began, his voice carrying across the multilingual translation systems. "We are here to demonstrate an alternative approach to galactic cooperation." The chamber fell silent. Representatives from species that had long been marginalized by the Zorn collective leaned forward, hope and curiosity mixing in their collective gaze. Dr. Samira Reese managed the complex diplomatic AI systems, ensuring that every nuance of communication was captured and understood. The technological infrastructure they had developed made traditional translation look like primitive communication. The Zorn delegation, now fragmented, with representatives from various emerging sub-collectives, looked diminished. Ambassador Krulax, who had once been the face of galactic condescension, now sat with a posture that suggested complete bewilderment. The restructuring plan was elegantly simple. Instead of punitive measures, humanity proposed a comprehensive integration strategy. Economic systems would be redesigned to promote collaborative development. Communication networks would be restructured to encourage multilateral information exchange. Technological resources would be shared with transparency and mutual benefit. Your previous system was fundamentally designed to limit potential, Ambassador Okoro explained. Our proposal is designed to unlock it. Dr. Elena Rodriguez presented the first wave of collaborative technological initiatives. Quantum communication networks that could link diverse civilizations, adaptive energy systems that could transform resource-poor regions, economic modeling tools that could help emerging species develop sustainable infrastructure. The most radical aspect of the proposal was its fundamental philosophy. Unlike the Zorn's hierarchical approach, this was a model of networked cooperation. No single civilization would be considered superior. Each would be seen as a potential contributor to collective galactic development. Sub-Council Leader Vexara, representing one of the emerging Zorn sub-collectives, found herself in an unprecedented position. The rigid structures that had defined her entire existence were being dismantled, not through force, but through a comprehensive reimagining of potential. We are offering you an opportunity, Dr. Reese explained during a side consultation, to become something entirely new. The economic models presented were breathtaking in their complexity. Resource distribution algorithms that could adapt in real time. Communication networks that could learn and evolve. Governance models that emphasized collaborative problem-solving over hierarchical control. Other galactic civilizations watched with a mixture of hope and trepidation. This was more than a diplomatic summit. This was a fundamental reimagining of interstellar relations. The human delegation didn't present themselves as saviors or conquerors. They were facilitators of possibility. Each proposal, each technological initiative was designed to unlock potential rather than restrict it. As the summit progressed, something remarkable began to happen. The rigid boundaries between civilizations started to soften. Communication channels that had been closed for generations began to open. Species that had been marginalized found themselves with unprecedented opportunities for development. Ambassador Okoro's final statement captured the essence of humanity's approach. We are not here to lead, he said. We are here to demonstrate that collective potential is far more powerful than individual limitation. The Zorn Collective, or what would emerge from its restructuring, would never be the same. Neither would the galaxy. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and they had changed everything.